Each year at the end of the college football season, there are 40, and 41 if you include the national championship game, different bowl games. Essentially, there's 80 teams that have to fill the bowl slots, as the national championship game takes 2 teams from 2 other bowls, aka the semifinals. In this video, we will go over proposed games that have occurred in the past and whether or not they're still in consideration or if they've been dropped. The NCAA did limit bowl games starting in 2016. They imposed a 3-year moratorium that led to a pause on the amount of bowl games there would be. With the addition of a possible 12-team playoff, who knows if they'll add more bowl games or if they'll adjust the bowl game schedule somehow, but that would be something to discuss in the comment section. We're going to start off with 4 bowl games that had discussions about them, but not any proposals. So there's not going to be too much information or details on these 4 potential bowl games. The first would be a St. Louis bowl game. The second would be a Toronto bowl game. And this one, there's actually a different bowl game that used to be in Toronto called the International Bowl. So to a certain extent, it would be a successor. The International ran from 2007 to 2010, and it featured conference tie-ins for the Big East and the Mid-American Conference, or the MAC. There has been discussions to bring back the Toronto bowl game. Another bowl game that there's been some is the Ireland bowl game. They recently had a game in Ireland between Nebraska and Illinois, so definitely garnering interest there. So it should be interesting to see if a bowl game is going to be featured there in the future. And another bowl game that has had discussion about 10 years ago was a Dubai bowl game in the UAE. It'd be the right season to have a bowl game as it's technically their winter, so it won't be as hot if it's in an outdoor stadium. And with Dubai hosting multiple and many sporting events over the last 10 or 15 years, from a monetary standpoint, it would be doable. Next would be a Melbourne bowl game. This would be at Melbourne, Australia. This was an actually proposed bowl game, not just one under discussion like the previous 4 mentioned. In 2015, Australian officials met with officials of the Pac-12 Conference and the Mountain West Conference to potentially bring a bowl game to Australia, which would be the Melbourne Bowl game. And then this was put on freeze due to the previously mentioned moratorium in 2016. If it were to go through, it would be the 3rd FBS bowl game played outside the United States after the previously mentioned International Bowl and the present-day Bahamas Bowl. The next bowl game that has been mentioned or proposed is the Little Rock Bowl. It would be played in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the tie-ins that were proposed would be from the American Athletic Conference and the Sun Belt Conference. This initial proposal started in 2013, and the bowl game could have been called the Rice Bowl, or that's what they were considering. In 2015, both of these conferences were finalizing plans to have the bowl approved by the NCAA. And again, in 2016, with that freeze that was implemented, this bowl game was put on hold as well. The next bowl game was the Medal of Honor Bowl, which would have been played in Charleston, South Carolina. Before this bowl game would have became an end-of-year bowl game, it was actually an all-star game in 2014 and 2015. In 2016, they were going to make it or try to make it into an actual postseason bowl game. But again, with that freeze that the NCAA put on, this bowl game didn't come to. After that, they tried to revamp it back into the All-Star game, but it never came to. And as of 2018, there's been no press releases or updates on this bowl game from an all-star game standpoint or a postseason game standpoint. So it's really up in the air for the Medal of Honor bowl game. Next is the Austin Bowl, which would be held in Austin, Texas, where the Texas Longhorns play. The associated conferences were the American Athletic and Sun Belt, again, just like the Little Rock Bowl. In May of 2015, the NCAA certified the Austin area for a bowl game. Due to not having enough time, the organizers decided to resubmit their application to host a bowl game for 2016. But yet again, this bowl game was put on hold due to that freeze that the NCAA put on bowl games in 2016. And the last bowl game and most recent bowl game to be proposed is the Chicago Bowl, to be played in Chicago, Illinois at Wrigley Field. The conference tie-ins would be the Athletic Coast Conference, so the ACC, and the Big Ten Conference. It would be played in the baseball stadium, Wrigley Field, just like the Pinstripe Bowl, where they play at Yankee Stadium, and the Fenway Bowl, where they play at Fenway Park. It was reported that the negotiations for the bowl game has been tabled for now, until an agreement can be reached with the Big Ten Conference on a higher ranked team playing in the game. So essentially just want to make sure that the bowl game is not a low tier bowl game, but probably mid tier to high tier. And this bowl game started to have discussions and proposals around 2018. Again, as previously mentioned at the beginning of this video, it should be interesting to see if the NCAA does add more bowl games, or what they do with bowl games as they start pushing towards a 12-team playoff. If the playoffs don't have bowl games associated to the playoff games, that will obviously open up more potential bowl games for teams. You'd have the 12-team playoff, and then potentially 80 other teams being in a bowl game. So it should be interesting to see how they actually align that all up, and to see if they actually do potentially add some of these proposed games, whether they be new bowl games or additional bowl games or replacements for others that might fail. Do you guys think they should add some of these proposed bowl games? Do you think maybe some other cities should have bowl games instead? What's your guys' thoughts on that? Again, we mentioned the playoffs multiple different times, which is kind of in conjunction to this video. But if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to also express that in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.